How are you, Mr. Ed Davis?
Well, talking of warm-ups, I had about half a mile walk to get a cup of tea just now, which I just made it back in time because our coffee machine isn't working outside the studio, and had to go all the way down to Virgin Radio, which is a lovely walk, but it was a long walk back. I'm very well indeed. You mentioned Keyshawn Davis, Amanda Serrano, John Hegarty. That was my week, chasing those guys all around the world, from Thailand to America to, where were they, Las Vegas last week. It's been a fascinating week, as it is at the moment, and I know what you're going to say right now. Where should we be tonight?
Well, the fight that we should be speaking about this evening in the world of boxing, of course, is the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. Every fight fan knows that fight is not taking place this evening. It has been rescheduled for May 18th, 13 weeks away from where we're at right now. Delayed, of course, because of Tyson Fury's injury and him not being able to participate in a bout this evening. Obviously, a massive hit for boxing because we're all excited. We all have been waiting for the best part of 25 years for an undisputed heavyweight championship fight. I suppose another 13 weeks isn't going to hurt anybody. But it is obviously one of those moments where fight fans do feel a little bit deflated, and fingers crossed we can get this on in 13 weeks' time and get it finally over the line. Yeah, well,
it feels like it's the fourth time it's been postponed in lots of different ways, and it's different transmogrifications.
Great word.
Thank you. I shall use many of them tonight. We'll be very erudite about our nomenclatures tonight, then, shall we? Let's go Latinate. Anyway, but to get into the nitty-gritty of blood, sweat and tears, I think it's got to happen on May the 18th, because I think the disappointment levels, not least that they've got a $10 million forfeit on both sides with Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury if they don't turn up or can't make it. I do see it happening. I do think the big debate...
Just on that.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that, because I want both men to turn up fully fit.
Yeah.
I don't know that, listen, 10 million quid or $10 million or whatever it is, it's a lot of dough, innit?
It is.
And I just fear that someone might rock up not fully fit because they don't want to lose $10 million. I'd rather them just say, listen, I want to be fully fit, give me another 2 weeks or another month or whatever it may be.
Yeah, but
listen, I want the fight, but I want them to be fully fit and look, 100%.
Here's the perfect segue for you. Carl Froch fought one of the greatest fights I've witnessed against Jean Pascal in Nottingham. Tyson Fury's debut, in fact, in 2008 for the WBC super middleweight title, with a perforated eardrum and broken ribs. Okay, and was amazing that night. It was like watching an old fight in sepia, in black and white. And fighters very often go into contests with injuries. Our very own friend Michael Bisping and others have hidden head cuts in their hair and been stitched up and gone into fights before, or hidden that they're one-eyed going into fights. That's Michael Bisping, an amazing character and fighter. I think the danger is that Tyson Fury's eye gets opened in the lead-up, but they'll be very careful about that. They'll have a very tight head guard. They can bandage him up. They can do all sorts of things. They'll give him loads of vitamin E on the way through now, and he'll get the best nutrition possible. It'll be closed up in 2 or 3 weeks. And he will have to do a bit of sparring, because he can't do sparring.
Of course.
And I just think we're going to have a different fight. I thought we were going to get a cagey chess match. I think we might have a bit of a blockbuster now, a bit of a rumble in Riyadh, May the 18th. Okay,
with that in mind, I'm going to pick your brains on it in a moment. But first and foremost, let's hear from a couple of promoters that have been on talkSPORT throughout the course of the week. Frank Warren and Usyk's promoter, Alex Krassyuk, have both been speaking to various shows here on talkSPORT. We'll start with Frank Warren.
He would have been fighting this Saturday, but unfortunately he's not. And we all know the reason for that, but he is a highest level professional. He accepted this news with a smile on his face, with complete comprehension of what's going on. So this is going to be another challenge for him, but he's ready for the challenges in his life. So nothing major changed, but the only change is the date. Everything else remains the same.
He'll be ready for the 17th. He'll be ready for that, and it'll take its course and it'll heal. And there's nothing unusual in boxing for fights to be postponed. The fight that took place on Saturday between Williams and Hamza, that had been postponed from last November because Hamza busted his hand up.
Yeah.
The fight the week before, which was Aziz and Buatsi, that was postponed because Aziz got injured last year. So that was a postponement. It's nothing unusual in sparring. They're actually punching each other. So you will pick up injuries. It's unfortunate. And it's happened with Tyson. It happened with George Foreman. That happens in boxing.
As you can tell, that was the other way round. That was Frank speaking secondly to Alex Krasuk speaking first up. But they're right in what they're saying there. Obviously, these things do happen. And the fight has been pushed back to May 18th. And I just want to pick up on something that you said a moment or two ago there, Gareth. The delay to the fight. How do you think the delay to the fight affects both men individually? How does it affect Fury? How does it affect Alexander Usyk?
Well, I mean, Tyson Fury is actually physically affected, so he can't do anything about it. And having spoken to his...
he can do S&C though, can't he?
He can do S&C. He can do a lot of S&C.
Yeah,
I mean, he looked in phenomenal shape. He looked in the best shape that I've seen him for a long time. Certainly in the shape he looked for that second fight with Deontay Wilder in Las Vegas a few years back. And I think, having spoken to his manager, Spencer Brown, about it, he was very down, first of all. But he knows he's got a physical ailment. But for Alexander Usyk, he's not having to recover from anything. I think it's tougher mentally on Alexander Usyk, even though, as we know, Tyson Fury's mind games don't seem to work against Alexander Usyk at all. He's his own man. He's an incredible character. And as Alexander Krasuk and Egis Klimas, his manager and his promoter, both revealed, he just shrugged his shoulders when he heard the fight was off. A friend of mine who's a photographer was out there at the time, by the way. They didn't tell him till his sparring session was over that the fight had been postponed. No, I think it's tough for Alexander Usyk because obviously he was preparing for, December the 23rd originally, having been there out in Saudi Arabia for October the 28th for Battle of the Baddest, when Fury put in one of his worst performances against Francis Ngannou. So I just think it's tough for him because he's had to delay after delay after delay. That may work on him, but I just think these two guys need to deliver us something special on May the 18th. I really hope so.
From an Usyk point of view as well, this training camp, I know that he was aware for the birth of his daughter. I think he's had another child, hasn't he, during this period of time, so he was aware for that birth, and obviously now he's gone back. It's interesting to see now how that tapers, because you can't just go straight through. You've got to take a step off, because you want to peak when we get to May the 18th, and that obviously goes for Tyson Fury as well. In the wider aspect, and this is a more interesting debate, because when I speak to fight fans now, over the last 2 years, or even longer, it's easy to be able to say, right, well, this can happen, this can't happen, because this broadcaster, because of this promoter, because of this sanctioning body, and you can see the pitfalls and the politics of which gets involved and in the way of certain fights happening. So when something like this happens, I then look at, for example, we have a situation with the IBF. Filip Hrgović has to wait a little bit longer for his opportunity to maybe fight for an IBF championship belt that might become vacant. But the more I listen to Turki Al-Sheikh, the man that seems to be running the whole ship now when it comes to boxing, especially in the heavyweight scene, I think sanctioning bodies and belts are starting to become a little bit irrelevant, because they've created their own belt for this championship fight, an undisputed belt, haven't they? And I think, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a bit more on the inside than me on this, but it seems to me that we're going in the direction that we're going to get one song every single division. It's not going to be 4 champions. It's not going to be 3 champions. It's going to be, no, this is it. And when it comes to mandatories and things like that, they're kind of becoming a little bit irrelevant, because we all want, as fans, to see the best fights. What are the ones that get us off our seats? Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk is absolutely that.
It's a must.
If Anthony Joshua and Francis Ngannou deliver something spectacular and the winner of that comes through, you kind of want the winner of that to fight the winner of Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk rather than one of the mandatories.
Well, this is where we start to get into the weeds, because if Francis Ngannou does a number on Anthony Joshua, and I'm not ruling that out, and we've both spoken to Ben Davison in the last week, by the way, just to dig in here a little bit, and he and Lee Wiley are coming up with an amazing game plan. Speaking to Ben before we came into the studio tonight, coming up for an amazing game plan for him. My feeling is that we're going to end up with an almighty debate for a long time if Francis Ngannou just happens, as a big outsider, to knock Anthony Joshua out, because then does he fight for the undisputed, or does he fight? Will the belts fracture afterwards? I think the belts may well fracture. In my kind of long period in covering fight sports, when people fight for undisputed the first time and the belts fracture, if they have an amazing fight, you don't need a belt next time anyway. And so I think we'll get into that scenario. We need belts for the structure, but you're right in what you're saying.
I think they're going to become more irrelevant.
You can superannuate them by saying, right, we're doing prize fighting now. We're getting the best fighting the best. Beterbiev, Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. When they fight on June the 1st, you could just say, nah, if they have 2 fights, great. If they have 1 fight, and we want the winner of Joshua Buatsi and Anthony Yard, or Callum Smith, a winner against whoever, one of those guys, to fight the winner of that next, you're finding out then that the people's mandatory is deciding, you know?
And that's the best thing for boxing.
It's very good. I don't think it can last forever. But right now, it's the shift, the paradigm shift that boxing needs, and it should have. Best 6 months I can ever remember, this first 6 months of the year, by the way, going to June the 1st. It's extraordinary.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.